You know that feeling when you first wake up, you're just like lying in bed, and before you even stretch, you immediately look at your wrist.
Oh, yeah. You tap the screen or open the app for your fitness ring.
Right. And it spits out this recovery score.
Right.
Like maybe it says 42%. And you're just lying there thinking, well, I feel fine, but apparently my body is a total wreck today.
Yeah, it's wild. Suddenly you're questioning your entire reality based on, a glowing number. We're basically outsourcing our own physical intuition to an algorithm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we wake up and instead of just asking ourselves how we feel, we ask a piece of hardware. We expect these trackers to be this clean digital x-ray for our fatigue.
Right. But the reality is that the data these trackers are trying to capture is just incredibly complex.
It really is. So to figure out if these numbers actually mean anything, we dug into a really diverse stack of research for this deep dive today. We're pulling from a clinical comparative study on heart rate sensors from the Sensors Journal, expert coaching insights from Athletic Lab, some technical data from Kubio's HRV,
And that really eye-opening lifestyle analysis from LifeStack, yeah.
yes, exactly. So our mission today is to demystify heart rate variability for you. We want to take it from this confusing tech buzzword and turn it into like a practical tool you can actually use every day for your physical and mental performance. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can trust the gadgets on our wrists, we have to understand the engine they're trying to measure.
Yeah, and the biggest misconception is actually right there in the name. I mean, people hear heart rate variability and they assume, oh, it's just my heart rate going up during a run and going down when I sit on the couch.
Right, which makes intuitive sense.
It does, but HRV is not a measure of your heart rate. It's actually the microscopic variation in time between successive heartbeats. We're talking like milliseconds here.
Oh, okay. So if my heart rate is 60 beats per minute, it's not beating exactly once every second like a metronome.
No, not at all. A healthy heart definitely does not beat like a metronome. One beat might take 0.9 seconds, and then the next one takes 1.1 seconds. In medical terms, we're looking at the consecutive RR intervals.
And those are the peaks of the electrical waves that make the heart contract.
Exactly. And that variation, that millimeter by millimeter fluctuation, is the goldmine of data. The reason it fluctuates is because your heart is constantly getting conflicting orders from the two competing branches of your autonomic nervous system.
Okay, so the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, I know we hear about these a lot. The sympathetic is the fight or flight side. And the parasympathetic is the rest and digest side, right?
Spot on.
So if I'm thinking about this like driving a car, the sympathetic system is the gas pedal, and the parasympathetic system is the brakes.
That is a perfect analogy. And the faster you can toggle between those two pedals, the higher your HRV. Like if a dog runs into the road, your sympathetic system secretes epinephrine, you slam the gas, and your heart rate spikes.
But then the second the danger passes.
Right. A highly adaptable nervous system instantly uses the vagus nerve to hit those parasympathetic brakes, slowing the heart back down. So a high HRV means your body can seamlessly absorb and adapt to stress.
Okay, so then a low HRV means what? That microscopic variation is just gone.
Yeah, your heart starts beating rigidly. The gas pedal is essentially stuck to the floor, leaving your body in this state of constant low-level fight or flight.
And what's crazy is that the body doesn't really differentiate between types of stress, does it? Like, I can be sitting perfectly still in my ergonomic desk chair, but if my HRV is low...
Your biology is literally treating your email inbox like a physical predator.
Yeah.
Mental stressors, like public speaking, work stress, difficult decisions, they all directly depress your parasympathetic tone. The chemical cascade in your blood is virtually identical, which just tanks your HRV.
Okay, so if the engine is this really delicate tug of war between our biological gas and brakes, how is a glowing green light on my wrist actually tracking it? Because I have to admit I'm a bit skeptical.
Oh, for sure.
Like, are these optical sensors just glorified mood rings compared to, say, a medical-grade chest strap?
Well, to answer that, we have to look at the clinical study comparing the different sensors. So a chest strap relies on an electrocardiogram, or ECG. It sits directly over your heart and measures the exact electrical impulse at the source.
Right, catching the actual spark.
Exactly. But smartwatches and armbands, they use photoplethysmography, or PPG. Those glowing green LEDs shine light into your tissue to detect subtle changes in peripheral blood volume. So technically, PPG isn't even measuring heart rate variability.
Wait, really? Then what is it measuring?
It measures pulse rate variability, or PRV. which some argue is a distinctly different biomarker.
Oh, because it's not catching the electrical signal in the chest. It has to, like, wait for the physical wave of blood to travel all the way down the arm to the wrist.
Yes, and that journey introduces a huge variable called pulse transit time. The time it takes blood to reach your wrist isn't constant at all.
It changes.
It fluctuates based on your respiration, your blood pressure, and how stiff your blood vessels are at any given second. The optical sensor on your wrist is essentially trying to guess the electrical rhythm of your heart based on a mechanical echo that arrives milliseconds later.
Wow, okay, so the hardware on our wrist is literally just inferring the data from an echo. When the researchers put these two technologies side by side on healthy adults, how accurate was the wrist sensor, really?
Well, the findings all came down to this massive variable most of us completely ignore, which is posture.
Posture, like slouching.
Basically, yeah. When the participants were lying down in a supine position, the optical sensors showed excellent reliability compared to the ECG strap. The numbers were nearly identical.
Okay, that's reassuring.
But when they moved to a seated position, the accuracy of the optical sensor dropped significantly.
Hold on, just sitting in a chair ruins the data. How is that possible? These watches are designed for us to wear 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
mostly while we're just sitting around.
I know, but moving from lying down to sitting up requires a shift in your nervous system. Gravity is suddenly pulling your blood down into your legs. To keep you from passing out, your sympathetic system, the gas pedal, has to engage slightly to maintain your blood pressure.
Oh, I see. So that subtle shift physically changes things.
Yeah, it changes the stiffness of your blood vessels. When they stiffen, the pulse transit time changes. The pulse wave moves differently, and that causes slight discrepancies that confuse the wrist sensor.
So if you're taking morning reading to see how recovered you are, you can't, like, lie in bed one day and then sit at the kitchen table the next. The posture change alone completely alters the score.
Exactly. Consistency is your only real defense against that hardware limitation. But the study did offer a really practical time hack for us.
Oh, I love a good hack. What is it?
So the standard clinical window for an HRV reading is a full 5 minutes. But the researchers found that a 2-minute recording gives almost identical accuracy for short-term metrics like RMSSD, which is the main formula these wearables use.
Oh, that's huge. You don't need to lie perfectly still for 5 minutes every morning. A quick 2-minute snapshot is scientifically valid.
Right, which fits much better into a busy morning.
Okay, but if just sitting up changes the physics of the blood wave, what happens when we factor in our unique biology? Like, we aren't all built the same.
This is where the golden rule from the coaches at Athletic Lab comes in. HRV is relentlessly individualized. You should only ever track your own trends.
So never compare my score to a friend's score.
Never. A 40-millisecond variation might mean one person is perfectly recovered, but for another person, it could indicate severe overtraining. And the clinical study broke down exactly how age and sex skew this data.
Let's start with age. What changes?
Well, naturally, our autonomic nervous system loses some of its flexibility as we age, so our baseline HRV goes down. But the tech itself struggles more too. Older adults, over 40 in the study, have increased arterial stiffness.
So, stiffer pipes, does the blood just move faster or?
It's more about how the wave behaves when it hits a stiff junction. When the pulse wave hits the capillary beds in your hand, it creates what's called a reflected wave. The pulse literally bounces backward.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the optical sensor at your wrist sees this reflected wave merging with the primary wave, and it creates this blurry, distorted peak. It makes it incredibly difficult for the algorithm to pinpoint the exact millisecond the beat happened.
It's like an echo totally confusing a microphone. What about biological sex? I saw that flagged in the research too.
Yes, females generally exhibit greater parasympathetic activity, so more braking power, but paradoxically, they have lower absolute HRV values, meaning shorter overall intervals between beats.
And did the sensors struggle with that?
They did. The study found the optical sensors were slightly less accurate for females, particularly in that seated position. It likely comes down to differences in vascular compliance, endothelial function, and hormonal fluctuations.
Okay, you're going to have to back up and explain vascular compliance and endothelial function to me. Like, I'm 5, please. Because if I'm a woman looking at my tracker, I want to know why the math might be off.
Fair point, yeah. The endothelium is just the inner lining of your blood vessels, and vascular compliance is how stretchy or flexible those vessels are.
Okay, that makes sense.
And hormones, particularly estrogen, have a profound effect on that stretchiness. Because hormone levels fluctuate significantly, the physical elasticity of the blood vessels changes too.
Which alters the speed and shape of the pulse wave arriving at the wrist.
Exactly. The hardware wants a constant, predictable wave, but female biology naturally introduces more variation into how that wave travels.
This raises an important question, though. If the hardware is this sensitive and our internal plumbing changes as we age and hormones change our veins, how do we actually apply this data to our lives? Let's get into the roadmap here.
Right. Well, in physical training, the methodology is shifting away from rigid schedules toward HRV guided training.
Like letting your wearable dictate your gym routine.
Yes. Normally, you might plan to do heavy sprints on Tuesday and a light jog on Thursday, but with HRV guided training, you throw the calendar out. If your morning HRV is above your personal baseline, you go do the intense sprint session.
And if it's below average?
You force yourself to do a low-intensity recovery session, even if it's supposed to be sprint day.
But does that actually beat a strict discipline schedule? I mean, it almost feels like giving yourself an excuse to slack off if this number on your app is low.
You'd think so, but the clinical outcomes are stunning. Studies show HRV-guided training leads to significantly better improvements in VO2 max and running velocity than pre-planned schedules. You're matching the stress to your body's exact capacity to handle it that day.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and the data reveals the true timeline of recovery. After heavy strength training, your HRV drops for up to 24 hours. But it actually takes about 72 hours for your nervous system to fully return to baseline.
Wow, 72 hours. That's a huge blind spot. You do heavy deadlifts on Monday, and your muscles feel fine by Wednesday, but your nervous system is still deeply fatigued.
Right, and if you push through that and do overload training, your HRV will really decrease. But if you follow that overload with a 2-week recovery block, your HRV rebounds and settles above your original baseline.
So your body literally builds a bigger engine. That's true physiological adaptation. And that brings us to the advanced metrics from Kubio's HRV, which, honestly, read like science fiction to me.
Oh, they're pulling massive amounts of hidden data out of the spaces between our heartbeats.
Yeah, like using HRV to extract your respiratory rate. Why wouldn't we just look at our heart rate to see how hard we're working?
Because heart rate is a lagging indicator. If you're jogging and suddenly sprint up a steep hill, it takes several seconds for your heart rate to actually catch up.
But my breathing changes instantly.
Exactly. Respiratory rate is a leading indicator. By analyzing the high-frequency variations in your heartbeat, the Kubio software can accurately map your breathing without needing a strap around your chest.
The metric that really blew my mind was how it can estimate your ventilatory thresholds, VT1 and VT2. Normally, you have to run on a treadmill in a lab with a giant oxygen mask to find those zones. How does a heart rate sensor do that?
They use a nonlinear parameter called DFA alpha 1. It basically measures the fractal correlation properties of your heart rate variability.
Hold on. What exactly is a fractal correlation in my heartbeat?
So think of a fractal as a complex, repeating pattern that looks similar at any scale, like the branches of a tree. In biology, complexity equals health. A healthy resting heart rhythm has a highly complex, unpredictable, fractal-like pattern.
Okay, but then when you start exercising?
As your work rate increases, you eventually approach your first ventilatory threshold, VT1. This is the exact moment lactate begins to accumulate in your blood faster than your body can clear it.
The burning sensation in the muscles.
Yes. That lactate buildup is a massive stressor. Your nervous system scrambles to manage it, so it forces your heartbeats to abandon that healthy, complex pattern. It adopts a much more rigid, predictable rhythm to keep the blood pumping efficiently.
And the software can see that shift.
Yeah, it tracks that loss of complexity. When the DFA alpha 1 value drops to exactly 0.75, you've hit VT1. As you push harder and hit your anaerobic threshold VT2, where you're totally out of breath, the complexity drops to 0.50.
That is incredible. It's reading the chemical panic in your blood just by looking at the timing of your heartbeat.
And they use this data to calculate TRIMP, too, training impulse. It uses Bannister's exponential model to quantify your true internal training load based on your heart rate reserve. So you get a precise biological cost of the workout, not just a guess.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because most of us listening are what you might call corporate athletes. We're optimizing for cognitive performance, not the Olympics.
Very true.
And the LifeStack source dives into this. Suppressed HRV doesn't just mean your legs are tired. It means your prefrontal cortex is compromised.
Oh, absolutely. The prefrontal cortex governs executive functions, decision quality, working memory, impulse control, and it is exquisitely sensitive to autonomic stress.
So if my nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, it's literally pulling resources away from my prefrontal cortex.
Yes, it routes resources toward the primal parts of your brain. Trying to do deep, creative, strategic work when your HRV is tanked is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on.
So if I wake up and my HRV is deep in the red, I shouldn't just skip the gym. I need to look at my work calendar and reschedule that high-stakes creative pitch. I should swap it for, like, low-stakes inbox clearing.
You're matching your cognitive load to your physiological capacity. If you force the car forward with the parking brake on, you cause massive internal damage, and the work quality will be terrible anyway.
Which brings us to the most common parking brake of all. We've talked about meticulously planning our weeks, but we have to talk about the saboteur, the lifestyle choice that actively destroys these HRV scores.
Alcohol.
Yes, alcohol.
It is the ultimate autonomic disruptor.
Mhm.
Now, the data from LifeStack draws a really clear line here. If you have exactly one drink, like one glass of wine with dinner, most studies show virtually no measurable effect on resting heart rate or HRV.
I imagine a lot of people just breathed a massive sigh of relief.
No.
But what happens at drink number 2?
That is the biological threshold where the math just falls off a cliff. Exactly 2 drinks will increase your resting heart rate by 10 to 20 beats per minute overnight.
Whoa.
And more importantly, it decreases your total HRV by a staggering 28 to 33%. You lose a third of your recovery capacity instantly.
The study mentioned a specific drop in high-frequency spectral power. What does that mean in the context of our gas and brake analogy?
Well, the parasympathetic system, your brakes, operates on a very fast time scale using the vagus nerve. It slows your heart down within milliseconds.
Okay.
Because it acts so fast, its activity is captured in the high-frequency variations of your heartbeats. Alcohol crushes that high-frequency power by 32 to 42%. It literally cuts your brake lines.
How is it doing that chemically, though? Like, what is the alcohol actually doing in the body?
Alcohol and its toxic byproduct, acetaldehyde, act as direct chemical stressors. They artificially activate the sympathetic system and depress cardiac electrical conduction. Your body is basically fighting a mild poison, so it stays on high alert.
So for heavy, chronic drinkers, this creates lasting HRV suppression.
Yes, the nervous system gets stuck in fight or flight, even on the days you aren't drinking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's ruining our sleep architecture too, right? The toxins are only half the battle.
Exactly. Alcohol is a sedative, so you fall asleep fast. But as your liver metabolizes it, the chemical changes severely fragment your sleep and suppress your REM cycles.
And REM is crucial for this specific metric, isn't it?
REM sleep is when your parasympathetic tone is at its absolute highest. It's the designated deep repair phase for your autonomic nervous system.
So it's a devastating double blow.
Yes, you get the chemical suppression from the toxins, and you're entirely robbed of the sleep stage designed to repair the damage.
You wake up feeling like you slept for 8 hours, but your wearable is screaming that you got zero recovery.
Yeah.
And here's the stat that's going to ruin some weekends for our listeners.
Yeah.
How long does that autonomic hangover actually last?
The acute HRV suppression from a heavy night of drinking can linger anywhere from 2 to 5 days.
5 days. If I wake up with a terrible recovery score on a random Tuesday, and I'm wondering if I'm getting sick, it might literally be the physiological ghost of Friday night's margaritas.
Yep. Your nervous system is still working overtime to clear the metabolic debt and restore the parasympathetic balance. That Friday night decision is actively degrading your Tuesday cognitive performance.
So what does this all mean? We've gone on quite the journey today. We've decoded the microscopic biology of the RR interval. We've navigated the mechanical quirks of optical sensors, the physics of pulse transit times.
And how things as simple as sitting up or getting older completely change the math.
Right. We've learned how to ride the waves of our baselines, to perfectly time our workouts, protect our prefrontal cortex, and understand the massive multi-day cost of that second drink.
But before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought.
Oh, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive discussing how to use HRV data to avoid pushing ourselves when our scores are low, right? We use the tech to avoid stress when we lack the capacity for it.
Yeah, that feels like the ultimate goal of all this bio-optimization.
But remember our very first definition. High HRV is literally defined as your nervous system's ability to adapt to stress. It is a biological marker of resilience.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
So what happens if we use our technology to perfectly optimize our lives and smooth out every single rough edge? If we chronically avoid all friction, skip the hard workouts, and never push our brains when we're in the red?
Do we risk atrophying the very adaptability that creates a high HRV in the first place?
Exactly. Resilience requires a stressor. By outsourcing our intuition to an algorithm designed to keep us perfectly safe, do we ultimately lose our resilience?
That is a brilliant point. The algorithm wants to protect us, but biological growth doesn't happen in the safe zone. Something to think about tomorrow morning when you wake up, squint at your wrist, and try to decide if that 42% recovery score is a warning sign to stay in bed or a challenge to go build a bigger engine. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the data and keep learning.